Thank you for joining us for the fourth and final fall webinar series with the Dining Executive Council. Really excited today to have you all join for our session on creative ways to combat unintended weight loss. For you who may not know me, my name is Meagan Pollak-Harrison. I am a Senior Spend Management Consultant with DSSI. I have been with DSSI over 14 years now, which I can't believe, and really have been focused on food service the whole time in various roles of product and consulting, and am part of the Dining Executive Council board. Before we get started into our topics, just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items. First, please note that the information contained in this presentation is intended to provide general information but not advice about certain regulations and initiatives. This is not intended as legal or other advice, and each situation may vary depending on the particular facts and circumstances. You should not act upon this information without first consulting with qualified legal counsel. For those of you who have maybe attended previous webinars in the series, thank you. I know when we send out the questionnaire afterwards, you have the ability to provide feedback on future topics that you would like to hear about. And one consistent theme as we've been planning these sessions out and talking with the board is really getting some help in navigating some of the unintended weight loss and dehydration that we've been seeing taking place in some of your communities with the social isolation from the residents. So what we really want to do was focus this webinar on ideas around menus, snacks, different hydration programs to really help maybe give you some creative ideas on how you can help mitigate that and really provide that positive dining experience for those residents during these challenging times. Throughout the demo, you're going to see a couple different sections today, and the first one we're really going to be focused on getting perspective on a clinical and food service operation within the communities from some of our experts. And then I know for those of you who have been able to attend our in-person events in the past, you've really appreciated and enjoyed when we've been able to do a live demonstration. I know virtually we're not able to give you any of the samples or snacks afterwards, but I think you're going to really enjoy the second half as well as we provide you with some videos and a cooking demo. Quickly, as I get started here, for those who were able to join us in August, I had done a webinar where really shared some insight with some different supply chain partners on some of the disruption that we'd seen in the supply chain throughout COVID, and shared some data and analytics on some purchasing behavior that we noticed impact both menus and ways that you were delivering meal service out to your residents. So quickly before we jump in with our panelists and presenters here today, some of the feedback we had received was actually to get a quick update on how those numbers maybe look the same or different. So let me just do that real quick for everybody. The first data that we had presented on and shared in August was really around how food service had changed during COVID time. So one of the biggest trends that we had seen taking place was the increased use of disposables. So for those of you who maybe didn't join us in August, what you're seeing on this green bar is the data that I had presented. And we were looking at this from pre-COVID, which we considered mid-March. That's really when we saw a shift in the supply chain. So from mid-March until the end of August, we had seen close to an 85% increase in disposable. Now, since September through actually just yesterday or the day before, the analyst, Kim, had helped me run some numbers, we have seen a slight decrease in the disposables, where there's still, though, a 72% increase in what we're doing. I loved it. On our last webinar, we had some great chats coming in. Folks had shared as they've been watching different things through infection prevention. Some were still using disposables and COVID units. Others were trying to move back to China. But an interesting piece where people shared they were using disposables was either because they were providing meals for the staff as some extra appreciation for them coming in during COVID times, And then the other one is some of the meal service out to the room. So we touched on that a little bit last webinar, trying to get creative ways, especially for some folks in the assisted living and independent living, where they have residents in different buildings and cottages, on how to get meals out to them if they weren't comfortable coming to the dining room yet. Then I'll kind of go through these other areas a little more quickly. With the overbed tables, we saw a really big 56% increase. A lot of communities ordered overbed tables with the movement of more residents having to do in-room dining. Not a lot of overbed tables have been bought because I think there was quite a bit of activity in those first few months of COVID. So that number is actually trending a little bit down of where it was pre-COVID times. Interesting meal delivery. I know Tina shared last month some creative ways for meal delivery equipment and products to use. Again, we saw a little bit of a spike in those first months of COVID, and some people are either probably just buying regular equipment or have maybe decided to try some of that out. So there's been a slight uptick, but not really significant change from pre-COVID times. And then the non-disposables, this is where we're looking at just your regular china, your warmers, things like that. And we have seen a 40% decrease of where we are normally. But again, we know census numbers are down and some folks are still using those disposable products, as you're seeing in that top graph. So just wanted to share a quick update there. This graph really highlights that disposable number where we saw that big spike in March, and it's leveling off, and we're continuing to see somewhat of a decline there with that 13% drop in August. Then the last slide I wanted to touch on was really, we took a look based on PPE because we know there has been an adjustment in census for many of the communities. So this is looking at all the different broadliners and specialty vendors that we actually have coming into DSSI and any of those providers that we have census information for. So what we looked at with this is really, I think, very relevant to our topic today as we look at ways that folks are trying to change their menus, change their food service operations to help with safety, to help with some of the labor issues that we're seeing in the industry, as well as some of that unintended weight loss. So I'm not going to go through every single number. We'll send these slides out, but it's the same. What you're seeing in green was that baseline pre-COVID compared to March through September, and that kind of tealish blue bar is September through current time in November. One interesting piece I think that is relevant is that convenience food. So we've seen a 14% increase in use of convenience items. So those are what we consider any of the pre-cooked proteins, entrees, portion-controlled items. So you're maybe using a PC versus bulk that you're scooping with your staff. Interesting with the unintended weight loss concerns, we have also seen an increase in the supplements and nutritionals to help with that. So that has even jumped up a little bit more, both that and convenience foods, since we last talked about this in August. Interesting, quite a big jump in fruits and vegetables. That is the fresh fruits and vegetable produce categories that we were looking at. I know there were some disruptions with labor and some of the crops. And I know we won't get into it too much, but there have been some recent studies, just to help boost the immunity and things like that. So maybe more folks are trying to work in some of those fresh fruits and vegetables into their programs. And then the other one I just wanted to touch on quickly really is around the beverages. So with the concerns of dehydration, I thought it was really interesting. I was talking with some other dietitians in the industry that there had been a 12% drop in the PPD around beverages when we were concerned with dehydration. But now, since then, it's been a really significant shift with that 3% uptick. So I think folks are really focused on that hydration, figuring out ways to safely have beverage carts and put water stations back in the communities. There's been as waves have been allowed, again, as if you were able to attend last month, we learned some parts of the country were able to open up dining rooms slightly. So we are seeing an increase in that beverage again. So just wanted to quickly share on some of those topics with the group. And I thought that was a really great lead-in for our first segment. And for that, we're really going to be focused on the clinical and dining and nutrition operations. So we will be joined by Liz Jensen, who is our clinical director from Direct Supply. Liz is a great partner, and I'm really honored to have gotten to work with her and get to know her better over the years. Liz is a certified gerontologist nurse with over 30 years of experience in the industry. And Liz also leads a clinic product advisory group that she really works with clinicians across the industry to make sure that we're helping bring the right products to really serve our residents' needs. And she leads the Clinic Product Advisory Board, or the Clinical Leadership Conference, which is really similar to the Dining Executive Council group. This really allows her to share her broad perspective of challenges and best practices with the clinicians that are focused on the current environment. So Liz, I'll turn it over to you in just a minute to help share some of that insight. And joining her in this section is Ginny Skelley, who is the Director of Spend Management for Genesis Healthcare. Ginny has over 40 years of food service experience in senior living with jobs in food service, as a food service director, district manager, menu processes and planning, as well as purchasing. I've had the privilege as well of working with Ginny for many years, and her passion for the senior population is just very evident. She is currently also working with Meals on Wheels, and as you'll see when she comes on, she's getting creative. She'll be sporting her mask today because I think she's coming in live from that location where she's serving over 200 seniors a day to help with that. And she's really going to share her extensive expertise and experience in how you can have some creative ways with hydration programs and snack programs to get a little creative to help with that unintended weight loss. So Ginny and Liz, thank you both for joining us today and being willing to share your expertise. And with that, Liz, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Great, Megan, thank you so much. And hi, everyone, welcome. And I'm so glad you're able to join us today. And I so appreciate having the opportunity to come and spend a little time with you. I thought what I would do, I'm going to take just a few minutes to share some of the perspectives from some of the nursing groups that I've been working with. So during the course of the pandemic, we've held a number of different conference calls. We had our clinical leadership conference this summer that we held virtually, and just an ongoing conversation with many nursing leaders across the country in different organizations, different size organizations as well. We can go to the next slide here, Megan, if that's okay. I think there's a great phrase that I actually heard my colleague Chris Laxton, who's the executive director for the American Medical Directors Association. He shared this on a call that we were on earlier this week, that innovation feeds on constraint. And I think if there's a message in all of this, in the things that I'm learning from our clinical leaders and the things that I'm hearing that many of you are working on, is that the amount of innovation that's had to occur in our communities during this period of time is just amazing. And we know that when we are constrained, that sometimes that brings out the best, our best thinking around how to make certain things happen. Now, that being said, we're also in the midst of a pandemic where we're challenged every day with keeping people safe, keeping our own families safe, and the stressors that come with all of that. And so times like this, when you can come together and spend some time learning from each other, maybe just taking a breath for a few moments and re-energizing and recharging are really critical right now. And they're always important, but I think especially for caregivers, this is so critical in order to be able to keep that innovation spirit alive and well, and your resilience and your own health at top of mind as well. We can go to the next slide. So I thought what I'd do is share a little bit of perspective from some of the different conversations that I've had with nursing leaders, some of the conferences that I've had the opportunity to attend this year, all virtually, and then some of my own observations in just working with a number of different groups. The way I would describe what we've been seeing through the course of the pandemic, and how this links and ties specifically into weight loss from a nurse's perspective, really very much ties into workflow. and the changes that we've seen in the normal workflow patterns and practices in a community. Now, I'm probably not saying anything that's probably not news to you. However, I think that it's important to revisit these workflows as we move into each of these individual stages and understand where things may be falling through the cracks, where there are gaps that might be occurring that unintentionally contribute to unintended weight loss. And so let's just walk through this just real briefly. So pre-pandemic, our communities were very oriented around routines. Every team member more or less knew what their roles were. We had schedules for getting weights done, maybe weekly or monthly. We knew what the expected communication processes were, and our teams understood, for the most part, what the responses to a changing condition might need to look like. Now, in the early days of the pandemic, where we were isolating people in their rooms, we were assigning staff members to sometimes take on more tasks and roles in order to minimize the number of people going into a room and minimizing, frankly, the amount of PPE that had to be used as people were going into these rooms. And so that meant that the loss of multiple eyes on a single resident was changing that workflow in a way that perhaps we weren't picking up on some of the natural things we would have picked up on in times gone during a routine pre-pandemic time. We're also seeing shifts in the communication process that were creating these gaps as well. So if I was asking a CNA to perhaps, do a few more things for me while she was in the room, that might limit my ability to actually get my own eyes and ears and my ability to assess the resident fully. We're currently right now in this place where I call it gates and hinges. There's things that cause the facility to open back up a little bit and the things that cause it to close, the hinges that close it back again. I think the new, one of the leaders of the Biden administration's pandemic response team, Dr. Murthy, I was listening to him speak the other day, and he talks about the pandemic response as being really, where we're at now is really more of a dial, not a switch. So we had been very much in kind of the switch mode of, we're either going to be completely closed or starting to open back up again. And now I think many communities across the country are understanding that, dialing this ability to open maybe back up in certain parts of the building or creating ways that we can think about not being so restrictive in order to get people out of their rooms perhaps a little bit more and to reconnect them into the social network both in the community and with their family members. So I think that we've seen these care and living zones being established within communities, and the realization that the risks associated with social isolation that have resulted in unintended weight loss are in fact maybe worse than some of the protection against the virus in and of itself. So as we move later into this winter here, and I think what comes next is really what I'm calling compassionate vigilance. I think asking for family and friends and really being able to stay focused over these next few months. We've gotten some great news about a vaccine, and that's great. However, it's going to take a while for that to be distributed and a while for the vaccine to work. And so we're looking at months in front of us yet where we really will need to continue to keep a compassionate and vigilant focus on balancing the needs of the resident, recognizing the negative effects of social isolation and depression and how that's contributing to weight loss. We can go to the next slide, Megan. So a few things that I would just, oh gosh, I'm sorry, my slide got kind of messed up here, but I thought I had it fixed before. Maybe I've been putting it in presenter mode. So I'll try to walk you through this a little bit. So two things and two kind of thoughts that I want to just leave you with today is that as we think about what's most important to the resident, one of the activities that I will often challenge nurses or groups that I'm working with through is this if-then exercise. So, and getting really focused into some of the specifics of that. So for instance, if the thing that's most important to the resident is having company when they eat, then how can we find them a dining partner? Is there a way to create like a little mini pod for residents to eat together, or find ways for them to have company when they're having a meal? If it's most important to them to be able to get out of their room, are there ways that we can continue to support maybe perhaps a staggered dining schedule so that we can get people into the dining rooms at lesser capacity and stagger that dining process? Family time, having Zoom meals with families, and then that's supposed to say if variety is important to them, then maybe a pizza night from time to time. I know Ginny's got some great ideas she's going to be sharing here as well. We can go to the next slide. Let's see how messed up my next slide is, Megan. Let's go check that one out. Oh, this one actually worked. Yay. Okay, great. So what's most important to the resident now, unfortunately, we also have to keep in mind, how do we keep the workflow moving forward too? We all have jobs to do and work that has to get done. So if the most important thing to the workflow is that we need to get weights done, then how are we adjusting the schedule in order to make that happen? We have assistance with meals, and we talked about staggered dining. One of the things that one of the nurses shared with me that I thought was really a neat idea, and I wanted to share it with you. If you've not had the opportunity to be connected to some of the CNAs in your communities, creating some different times where you can maybe get on a quick Zoom call with them at the beginning of a shift, or hear directly from them about how to perhaps create some new ways to encourage people to eat, find out what they might be interested in having or trying, especially for people that have experienced unintended weight loss, but finding ways for you to stay connected to those CNAs. Keep in mind, we've had a tremendous amount of staff turnover in many communities. And so the CNAs that were there at the beginning of the pandemic may not be the same CNAs that are there now. We've also seen a number of facilities that have had to go to agency staff, or they're having to segment their staff in their red, yellow, and green zones within their communities in order to restrict movement in the building. And so as a result, we may have CNAs working with residents that don't know those residents very well. And so your perspectives and the insights you have then become really critical for those CNAs to have then too, about what you've found that residents enjoy eating, what they what your capabilities are for addressing maybe specific requests. So all those things. The other thing where we've seen gaps too is around muscle loss and weakness that may require a therapy consult as well. So when we're seeing unintended weight loss, I know the dietitians are always, and the dietary managers, you're always thinking about this, but we've definitely seen that from a nursing perspective as well. So just another thing to keep in mind, and looking for ways to stay connected and communicating routinely, and perhaps in at a different cadence with your nursing leaders and therapy leaders as well. We can go to the last slide, Meagan. And then I think just, ultimately, I'll leave you with this final thought, is helping me see what you see. And I think, if you can't get in to see the residents as frequently, helping others that are in that room understand what it is that you need to see, what you need to be able to look at. I was sharing with the team when we were preparing for this, we've seen a real reduction in the number of wheelchair cushions that Direct Supply has been selling. And that's concerning for me as a clinician, knowing that most likely people are not purchasing or replacing these wheelchair cushions on the routine basis as they normally would. It all falls back into probably that workflow process again, is normally we would see and or identify the need for a replacement, or we had a workflow in place that pre-pandemic that isn't there now. And so, the risks then that starts to trigger our thinking, and those different clues that we can get are really critical for us. And so, help me see what you see, I think is a good phrase, and it's one that may help you have some new insights as well into how the nursing staff or the therapy staff are seeing the risks associated with unintended weight loss. So I'm going to turn it over to Ginny, because she's actually got all the fun stuff to talk about here. And I will thank you for letting me join you today.
Well, hi, everybody, and thanks to Meagan for a great start showing some statistics that I think will be reflective of what we're going to talk about, the next rest of the session, and also to Liz talking about, the challenges and the changes overall in the care process. It's all related. So this first slide here, it talks about things that I know, and probably we know it in our heart, we know it in our gut. We've been spending years trying to have a great dining experience in our dining rooms and trying to get people to come to our dining rooms, and of course suddenly, not so much anymore. We're suddenly doing a lot of in-room dining. So these things that I feel like we all know, by the way, they're true, and you can read actual research about them if you take a look online at the Pioneer Network and Person-Centered Care, or if you take a look at this great journal that I listed here, or several other journals. This one, Nutrition, Health, and Aging. You can read all the abstracts for free. You only have to pay if you want to print out the whole article. So I love that one. But also, if you look back, Sandra Simmons, who was working at UCLA, she did a lot of research on these kinds of things that are really behavioral and very hard to measure. So if this is your gut feeling and your heart's feeling, turns out it's actually true. So what do we do now when we're faced with more in-room dining? And if you would advance the slides, Meagan. Well, things have changed. And, if we were together, I might say, raise your hand if you think intake is down and if you think you're having more weight loss than you used to. So I think today we just have to virtually raise our hands and recognize that, these kinds of things, because of the situation and the challenges and the changes in the care process, these things probably are happening, and we need to do everything we can to prevent them or slow them down. So surveys have shown that we're having challenges, and I have a little slide showing some samples of recent deficiencies. And these may not be written too differently than they were in the past. They may be now written more frequently. And what's interesting is that the deficiencies are not just focused on the weight loss, but they're focused on the processes that Liz talked about that help us, track and watch and respond to the weight loss. So the surveyors they're in the buildings and they're finding, a lot of things that we might have expected. So I'm going to move on from that, kind of unpleasantness to talking about approaches that we can help resolve issues. And I want to thank right now the members of the RD Council for Quality Long-Term Care, many of whom are listening to the presentation right now, because I wanted to get a lot of perspectives, not just mine. And this council is comprised of 15 of the larger long-term care companies, and we represent several thousand skilled nursing centers. So when I'm presenting some ideas here, what's going on, some of them are mine, some of them are theirs. And if we were in the same room together, you could be sharing yours. So we're a little bit one way today, but maybe after the presentation, Meagan can do some collecting. Anyway, of course, there's always supplements. And Meagan showed that supplement purchases have increased. At Genesis, we use commercially prepared shakes, 4-ounce portions, only between meals, and only if it's care planned for the individual. And we actually haven't changed that since the pandemic started. But I know that some other skilled nursing centers are doing other things. Some of them are just using MedPass for everyone. It's a safety measure. Everybody gets it. Or a supplement for everyone. Some centers have actually moved their between meal MedPass and supplements to the mealtime because of the difficulty getting it passed in between meals. And some, because they've been using such a larger number of supplements, have tried to increase the variety, maybe by alternating a shake with a fortified juice and things like that. So there's been quite a few changes besides just the increase in usage. And, we absolutely want to talk about food first. In my heart, that's the way to go. I love that the commercial supplements pack a great nutritional punch. But I think we can do a lot with food first. And, one, of course, is getting preferences. Now, it used to be when we were in the dining room together, we could choose at point of service. Now it's a little bit more challenging. So how do we handle getting preferences or making selections? Do we pass out menus? Does someone make rounds on the unit to try to take orders? How do we accomplish as close as we can to that same point of service choices that we had when we were in the dining room? And also talk about portion sizes. In the dining room, we could maybe give somebody a little extra. With in-room dining, we have to know more ahead of time. And I've always been fascinated that some people, you give them a little more, and they'll eat it. And some people, if you give them a little less, they'll actually eat more of what you presented in the first place. Those folks that get overwhelmed with a lot of food. So how do we do that when we're not together, not in the dining room? We have to plan ahead. And then there's the snacks here, and Meagan again mentioned a lot more purchases of portion control products and convenience products. So I think, that some of it we're passing some packaged snacks that we might not have previously. And one of the companies that I was talking to, they were talking about tiny treats. And that's actually a piece of candy. And we talked about Reese's peanut butter cups. They do have some protein in them. And if you want to test that out, you could buy one just because you need to read the label. And then you might eat it as well. So I have some slides here that are going to drill down a little bit on the rest of what's on this slide. So if Meagan would change that up to fortified foods. So again, there is about as many kinds of fortified food programs as there are nursing centers, I think. This is a sample of Genesis fortified cereal recipe. So you can see it's loaded. If folks will eat that, they've got a great start in the day. We like the fortified cereal because breakfast is the best meal. So people are hungry when the breakfast tray comes, and they have a tendency to eat it all up. Some of the other ideas from members of the council that I talked to, some of them use this and a fortified soup, because soup is very well liked and it's easy to add soup to the meals. Then I talked to one company that actually has a very careful fortified menu that coordinates with their core menu. And every day they identify which items are going to be fortified: the cereal, the soup, the potatoes, the pudding. And they put out a recipe book to go along with it in a small quantity, maybe 5 or 10. And then on the other end of the spectrum with fortified foods, we talked to one company that said, who needs those complicated recipes? Just add a couple of ounces of melted butter. Who wouldn't like that, right? So, whatever you're doing with fortified foods, I think, hopefully somehow Meagan will be able to collect some ideas, or maybe those ideas I just said would work for you. So here's a slide about hydration. And I really love this slide because this is not a fancy hotel lobby. This is a unit in a skilled nursing center. And I think that water looks just so beautiful. And whoever is doing this, whichever Genesis centers are doing this, I think they're just so creative. I really love using the kiwi slice in the middle of the pineapple where the core is missing. I thought that was really clever. Anyway, I hope seeing this on the unit could inspire residents to have drink water. Maybe it's on a cart going around the unit and stopping door to door, and I hope it inspires people to have a drink of water. But when water gets tiresome, I have a couple of other ideas. If we go to the next slide, this is something that Genesis did a little while ago when we were having some challenges with hydration. It's hot summer, blah, 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 and water gets uninspiring. And we wanted some ideas beyond alternating water with lemonade and fruit punch. So I love the recipe on the left because it tastes a lot like an Arnold Palmer tea. Of course, we can't use his name. And then I love the recipe on the right because it uses something that's free, and that's draining the juice from the canned peaches when we're serving peaches. Save that and put it in and make some peach iced tea. So I think there might be, again, lots of other ideas like this out there. We got a lot of submissions when we challenged our food service director to come up with ideas, and I was just able to share 2 of them here. So then, what about making mealtime fun? This is a slide from the last webinar, and thanks to the folks at Life Care Centers, that team showed us some really great things that they were doing, including this. I think this menu is shows international foods and international meals, and then, look, they're doing some display cooking, and, it gets a little more challenging as we talk about in-room dining, but these kinds of things are still possible. So at Genesis, we have a program called Celebrations, and it's really a collection of 50 different holidays and special meals, and, some of them are really traditional, like Thanksgiving dinner, and some of them are more unusual, like breakfast for the first day of hunting season, which would be a little heartier than usual breakfast. Night at the Oscars, Fall Harvest Day. So some are actual holidays and some are theme days. And we provide a menu and recipes and a diet spreadsheet. And we used to provide ideas for setting up a buffet. But instead now we're trying to provide plating ideas to make this special and in-room dining. And we've also partnered with the activity directors to make sure that there is something fun connected to the celebration, or something, a way to connect with people. For example, on Thanksgiving, our centers are going to have a card on every tray, and we've asked the staff members that will be distributing the meals to have a conversation with every resident about, oh, hey, this is pumpkin pie. Did you always make pumpkin pie? At my house, we had pecan. And try to start just some warm conversations about the food and about the holiday. So I have a couple pictures of some fun things. So if you move another slide. Now, these are not celebrations. These are our everyday menu items. That photo on the left is a tuna stuffed tomato, which is on our spring-summer menu. And I love this picture because this particular center added a basil leaf from the garden at the center. So I think it looks really special, plus they got to get it from their garden. So that's a great connection with the activities folks. The picture on the right is our once-a-week French toast with the strawberry half garnish, but look what someone did. They must have gotten up very early in the morning to accomplish this, but I think it looks great, and this happened on a daily basis, not even for a celebrations meal. Now, the next slide does show some food we prepared for celebrations. On the left, those are fabulous-looking apple dumplings, and that's a snack for the day when we're celebrating the fall harvest. And on the right, those are spiderweb cake, pieces of cake, and that's the dessert on the Halloween menu. So both look fun and both look like something that we could, manage with in-room dining. And then I think it's my last slide, is showing what some of our activities departments have done to make the snack pass really fun. So on the far left, that is obviously Halloween, and they are passing a graveyard dirt pudding. And in the center, they're celebrating National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day, and who's not going to take a cookie when someone dressed like a cow offers it to you? And then on the right, it was part of a 50s Day celebration, and you can see that there's cookies in those baggies. But, you know, they're just our regular cookies, but in this case, they put a little picture of a record in there with it, so folks would think about the music they listened to during the 50s. So I really feel like, you know, our activities folks have been so engaged, and the cart that goes down the hall is not boring. It's really, really fun. And so I hope that you all are doing some of these things to help get us through these challenges. And I think now I'm standing between you and some fabulous actual live demo.
Great. Thank you, Ginny, for sharing your knowledge and expertise from what you're doing to get dining creative for your residents. And as Jenny mentioned, now we'll go into our live demo. I want to make sure the chefs have their time, so I apologize. We may run a little long, but I encourage everyone to stay on for the rest of the session. For those of you, again, who know me, I love when I can bring different innovative ideas, and that's really what this is. As a Dining Executive Council, we try and bring knowledge and insight from other industries, and I have an industry partner, JBH, that I work with. For those of you who maybe attended the DSSI forum, you heard them speak a little bit on their Sous vide solution and some of their partners they work with on that. And really, they came to me at the beginning of the pandemic and said they had a great idea for the Simple Solutions program, where they partnered with various manufacturers, two of which are with us today, Cuisine Solutions and Direct Food Service, to really bring insights from the hospitality and restaurant industries to bring this fabulous experience, to really help you elevate your senior living dining programs, and really help with some of the supply chain and labor issues that they're dealing with. So I'm going to do a quick intro of the panelists. I'm probably not doing them justice, but want to give them time for their demos. First, we have Chef Del from Cuisine Solutions. Chef is trained at Johnson & Wales. He shared some fun facts I found on the Cuisine Solutions. His secret ingredient is uwine seeds. Del, I'm going to have to look up how to use those in my cooking as a amateur chef here, wannabe. Another favorite kitchen gadget of his is the Vitamix, and I love that your favorite cooking show is Bob's Burgers. We'll also see presentations from Rosanna Battista from Direct Food Service. She is the Director of Business Development with 15 years in food service and grew up really surrounded by passionate foodies. Sounds like her family has owned an Italian deli that is bringing really great flavors from their hometown in Italy to folks in the Midwest. Hopefully I'll be able to try some of those deli items at some point. And then joined by her from Direct Food Service is Leyla Wheelhouse, who is their executive chef. She comes with over 25 years of experience. You know, reading your bio, Leyla, and getting to work with you in person, it's really fascinating that you've been able to work in Italy, Hong Kong, Chicago, and then I think it's really unique that you traveled as a private chef for the Rolling Stone. So hopefully post-pandemic, I'll get to meet the three of you in person and share more stories and learn more about you. But the little I've been able to interact, you've been fabulous. And so I will turn it over to Del now from Cuisine Solutions to share a little bit more about the Simple Solutions program from the Cuisine Solution perspective.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. As the introduction was, my name is Delian DiPietro. I'm the chef for food service here at Cuisine Solutions. My colleague, Sonia Kapp, is with me. You'll be seeing both of us work in tandem and trying to make sure that we're providing really amazing products at all times. So if you may not be very familiar with sous vide cooking is cooking at precise temperatures. So I'm talking about 1/100th of a degree. That's how precise we're looking to be. And that's going to be typically at a lower temperature curve and for extended periods of time, sometimes as much as 3 days or 72 hours. So we have a lot of different products. Cuisine Solutions has been around for over 30 years at this point. We are the world leader in sous vide technology and sous vide cooking. We've trained 80% of the world's 3-star Michelin chefs on how to do it successfully in their kitchens. And then what's a lot of fun for us is Sonia and I actually get to go around and train people hands-on how to use our products and how to understand the safety that's inherent in the sous vide process.
And a lot of the products that you'll see from us include proteins, so chicken breasts. We even have the capability to slice protein, slice turkey, slice sirloin. I mean, it takes a lot of the labor part and a lot of the safety aspect out of the kitchen in terms of slicing. Short ribs. We're well known for a 72-hour short rib that really demonstrates the purpose and the beauty of sous vide. And that is a short rib that is cooked for 72 hours, but is medium rare. So it looks and eats like a steak, which is amazing. And that is thanks to sous vide technology. So apart from that, we'll show you a few videos today. And one features our chief scientist, Dr. Bruno Gousseau. He is the father of sous vide. So in the video, you'll hear him speak about the technology, and you'll see how we've taken that technology and industrialized it. So we use those same concepts that he talks about when we cook our food on a bigger scale. And then we'll show you another video, and Del can explain the beauty behind that one.
So we know webinars, I'm sure at this point in 2020, we're all familiar of some videos or demos that have gone poorly. We wanted to do a video this way. We may not have to do too much motion or get anybody sick from changes. But we're going to be focusing on our luxury products. So that's going to be our 72-hour short rib, and you'll be able to see it's a whole muscle. We're just going to do a pan sear. We're going to serve it with our creamy grits or polenta, depending on which terminology you'd like to use. And then just one of our red wine beer sauces. Really fantastic products.
And the great thing about these, to keep in mind, even though they're cooked in water, and you'll see in the video, but sous vide is cooking under pressure. So we take a piece of meat, put it in a protein or a sauce or a grain, whatever. You can sous vide anything. Put it into a pouch, take the oxygen out, and cook it in water, because water is the best conductor of heat. So this way, we're able to cook it till it's very tender, till it's juicy. We don't need a lot of seasonings. We don't need a lot of fat. So it's actually very healthy, and the texture is really, really great.
It really enhances those natural flavors, because you're almost doing a combination between a poach and a confit. You're really enhancing all the natural flavor that's in the meat already, because it can't go anywhere. All those juices, all the natural flavor is just concentrated during the cooking process.
Yeah, and so even the products cooked in water, you don't need any of that in your kitchen. You need whatever you have. If you have just a fryer, if you have a plancha or an oven or a microwave.
You name it. It's meant to work with the infrastructure you have.
Yep. So we'll see in the video. Basically, you take the products out of the pouch and use it in your recipes. Add a vinaigrette, add a seasoning. And
obviously, we didn't mention this yet, but one of the other key pieces of cooking sous vide is our products are fully cooked and pasteurized, meaning that they can be used at any temperature. So you can open the pouch, slice the chicken, put it directly into a salad. It's safe to eat. You can take that same chicken breast, give it a quick sear on a plancha or in a pan, and then serve it in your restaurant. The idea is it's meant to be flexible. It's meant to be an ingredient and use it as such.
And that's why this product is not only great for center of the plate options, it's really great for grab and go, because you have a fully cooked chicken breast that is still tender that you would just take out of the pouch, slice it up, and put it on a grab and go salad. Or same thing with a sliced turkey. So really good option, very safe, and fully pasteurized.
So with that, I think let's start our video. Thank you, guys.
I think my capability is to look the life with another view than the other people, because I am totally colorblind. My name is Bruno Gousseau, and I am a food scientist. The real beginning of the sous vide is when the chef Joël Robuchon worked on this process because I chose him to work, and since 1983 I work with Joël Robuchon to prepare the beautiful food, for me the best in the world. All people consider I am the father of sous vide. I think it's not really like that. My contribution is to try to arrive to cook at precise temperature, to measure the temperature through the plastic, and after to explain what happened at a different level of temperature. I discover in life you need a lot of time to sit on your ego. The chef is an artist. Me, I am a scientist. I never imagine I am able to replace the chef. I can help him, but I can't replace. I work with all the chefs in the world, like Mr. Robuchon, Thomas Keller, Anne-Sophie Pic, Yannick Aleno, Michel Bras, Régis Marcon. Is a real pleasure each time, because they are different, but they work in the same way to give a pleasure to the people. I have a lot of collaborators. People work with me, but each is different. When I met people, he won't have the perfection of the food. And to have the perfection of the food, it's passed by the perfection of cooking. Sous vide or not sous vide, you won't cook at precise temperature. You can't imagine how you can discover when you measure precisely a temperature. My thermometer is my favorite equipment in kitchen, in a life, because my life is in kitchen. And we know only 7% of we need to know to explain all the kitchen process. Today I am 75 years old. My biggest achievement changed during my life. At the beginning of my job, I want to be the best food scientist of the world. Now I want to transmit my knowledge and pass the end of my life to do that. For me, the transmission of the knowledge is very important. To work with patience, but to work also with beauty. The elegance is important. Favorite part of my job is to meet the people. Always I want to invite people to eat, to discuss, not fight. The meeting on the table is important because you can exchange with the people. Keep cool and keep in peace.
if knowledge serves me correctly, I believe that it's Rosanna with Direct Food Service who will be joining us next. Rosanna worked in customer food service for 15 years with a background in business development and strategic partnerships, strengths for process improvement. Rosanna grew up surrounded by passionate foodies as her family owned an Italian specialty deli that has been bringing culture and flavor from the hometown in Italy to the Midwest. Rosanna?
Thanks. I just wanted to start off today by saying thank you so much for having me be a part of this panel. I've learned so much in an hour. It really has been great, and grateful for the opportunity to really talk about combating unintended weight loss. Again, like Meagan had stated, my family had started this business 30 years ago from a small folding table in a stockroom of our family deli. And it really has grown to be one of the most respected businesses in the Midwest in food manufacturing. So the last 30 years, a little bit about our company, we have been 100% dedicated to the airline industry and customizing and producing first-class, business class, and buy-on-board meals for the major airline carriers, United, American, and Delta, to name the few. But as times have changed, we have really realized that we can do so much more to serve the food service industry, particularly in healthcare during the time of the pandemic. So as we have pivoted our business during the pandemic, we've had the opportunity to really be part of so many exciting projects and ventures, working with great suppliers like Cuisine Solutions, and really taking part in help to solve supply chain issues, to meet new food safety standards in meals, and partnering with national brands as a co-packer to help restaurants stay open. And also develop and manufacture a line of family meals through home delivery services, which is an industry that's grown 400% during the pandemic. So when we're asked to be part of this conversation today, we're so thrilled because we've had so many discussions around this issue, especially with assisted and independent living facilities, and how to successfully provide real food to the residents that they will enjoy, all while minimizing labor and waste, increasing the food safety standards, and most importantly, meeting those nutritional guidelines. So in taking all that, how do we do it cost efficiently, right? And how can we effectively meet the budget that was set in the beginning of the year, not knowing a pandemic was going to come? So this is what we do at Direct Food Service. We take all those requirements and we go to work, and we help to find a solution to really make it a win-win. And our goal is to be that problem solver, is to be that go-to company. Call Direct Food Service. They will help you figure it out. We're a family-run business, and we will remain family-owned unless my daughters want to become doctors, in which, by all means, please go and be a doctor. However, it's been over 30 years, and it's really exciting. And a family is everything, and that's a big part of our success here is because of that dynamic and how we feel for these residents, being away from their families and being secluded. It's terrible. And if we can provide a delicious breakfast to start their day, or a delicious, meal that's satisfying, that gives them a restful night, we're going to do that. And that is truly what makes our company successful and why we're so proud to do what we do. So we have an amazingly talented team of chefs here at Direct Food Service, and led by our Director of Culinary, Chef Leyla Wheelhouse, which you're going to hear from next. And she's going to talk about how we really take all these considerations and put them into our work, and explain kind of the process behind it. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Leyla.
Thank you so much. Everybody, hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to take this opportunity to thank Meagan and the team at DSSI for organizing this. And if I can, just take a minute and back up about also why we're here. I think that Meagan talked a little bit about simple solutions and building a brand and organization. We are here today in conjunction and support of Cuisine Solutions and another partner who helps us with Sous. When COVID happened, we created an organization in support of JBH to come up with solutions for the industry, focus on delivering the best possible food with a direct solution to the challenges in the industry. We are passionate about partnership in this process and honored to be here in representation of that. Rosanna shared a little bit about who we are as manufacturers with over 125,000 square feet in the Chicagoland area. Making food is what we do, and we are passionate about it. She also talked a little bit about how we started with the airlines. Several years ago, we started not only doing first business class meals for the airlines, but also created singular programs that were focused on wellness and well-being with attention to low sodium, high nutrient content cuisine, food that offered solutions for well-being, but had a complete response. And I think that connects to our mission and why we're here today and why we're honored to stand in support of JBH and Simple Solutions and Cuisine Solutions and talk about that we are real people cooking real food for a real solution. And in this pivot, we are excited to introduce, we've developed a line of frozen entrees that we believe are customized and are crafted and offered a finished meal solution, which is a response to social distancing, a response to staff shortages, and a complete solution for budgets. Because as we are working with different organizations, we are finding that they are approaching budgetary challenges. They had planned for this, and now they're running into pitfalls and how to respond to that. But we also, as a frozen meal provider, offer a operational touchpoint reduction. And we're proud of that in the grab-and-go delivery option and also in-room delivery or even in cafeterias. I think as I go through this next recipe that we're going to make, I want to talk about how not only are we here together in this presentation, but we are here together in the challenges that approach us as the United States and those that are passionate about the healthcare industry and creating a solution. And our approach to direct food service as manufacturers is to create fresh, colorful, appealing, delicious dishes. I've heard so many panelists talk today about innovation and the meaning and the need for innovation and where innovation comes from. For us, our innovation comes from making great tasting food. But what we also offer is a menu mix-up, adding something to your menu maybe your patrons haven't seen, or maybe your teams are accustomed to making certain things for certain regions. And adding something to your menu is a form of innovation, mixing up, adding something new, creating excitement for a community. But me, Chef Del, my team, Chef Gaetano, who you know, Rosanna, we come from a history of hospitality, and it is in our culture to serve and to be, to create the best possible experience. It was really exciting to hear all the different panelists talk about how they find hospitality. For us as cooks and as chefs, we understand this as making the best possible food. And Rosanna talked about how we've created food for international airlines and first-class meals. So for us, our goal is to create a first-class-like experience, room service-like presentations, and to eat with your eyes. All right, so I'm going to skip to this. Can you all see me? Can you see me okay in there? All right. So the dish we're going to make today is a chicken and dumplings dish. It is a chicken pot pie gravy. There was a panelist earlier who talked about putting a little bit of butter in things. I'm a big fan of that. We want this to be, as we're talking today about calorie count, we want to use the best possible fresh ingredients. We want to cook our vegetables in butter. We want to use real cream. We want to use real flavor. There is no sodium in this. And the ways that we approach creating flavor is we use as many herbs as we possibly can. Rosemary, thyme, dill, sage, parsley. We want to flavor our food as if you are cooking in someone's house. So I'm going to start the dish, some unsalted butter from Wisconsin, a little bit of onions, and this is just as the dishes we make in our factory. Our entree factory has teams of over 200 people that work 24 hours a day making delicious meals. So I'm going to saute a little bit of onion, a little bit of celery, and some leek, some beautiful green mirepoix with some carrots, and get that going, and some fresh potatoes. Being a manufacturer, not only are we passionate about making the dishes, but how do we find these ingredients? What does it take? How do we do that? And there's been a lot of discussion about creating these impacts in the healthcare industry about pork or farms of pork. How does that go? So here in the Chicagoland area, we work with manufacturers, or we work with farmers in Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin to find different ingredients and suppliers who can help us find the best possible products. To source locally and regionally is a big part of who we are. our dishes, and also talking about climate change and sustainability to keep our land management and teams that we work with as close as possible. Similarly, the containers that we use are the highest level of recyclability, and that's important. So I'm just cooking these together, just a light aroma. Again, we're cooking this in butter. We want that flavor and aroma. Chef Del and Sonia talked a little bit about Cuisine Solutions and their products. We are honored to partner with them and use their products. So premium products in these projects. So we've taken the chicken breast, which is a poached low sodium chicken breast. I believe it has under 200 milligrams of sodium per serving, which is fantastic. That is, for me, an example of using real food. And so we just shredded it ever so slightly. We're adding it to our beautiful chicken pot pie gravy. Behind me, you can kind of see some of the vegetables that we work with here. I'm right now in our customer engagement center where it's me. We have a few other chefs, and we typically welcome people in. And unfortunately, you cannot be here with us today. So I hope you can tell the aroma coming off the food that we're cooking. So I'm going to add to this a little bit of pot pie gravy. And to make this pot pie gravy, we're just using farm fresh cream, a little bit of chicken stock, and some spices and herbs. Again, low sodium. Our goal with this entire dish is that it is under, I believe we have only 300 milligrams of sodium in the entire dish, and the entree is 400 calories. So this is something that is scrumptious and delicious. It's not specifically regional. It is something I would cook for my family. And I'm going to show you kind of a little bit more upscale presentation after I do one more thing. So again, a little bit of butter. Just a little bit. And we have here some potato and gnocchi. Direct food service within our manufacturing group, we make a lot of our products from scratch. All of our sauces, different pastas, different proteins assembled. These are our potato dumpling that we're using. And here we're just going to saute it in a little bit of butter. And I talked to you a little bit earlier about the herbs and the value and the meaning of herbs. We have a little bit of sage, some parsley, some rosemary, dill, and thyme. And the reason I believe that herbs are so important is they create aroma, excitement. Imagine, when growing up in your house, was it the tomato sauce or was it that chicken soup, that's something that brought you to the kitchen? Here, how do we create something delicious that is memorable and creates joy? So I'm going to saute these. Add a little bit of fresh peas to them. And again, we're just trying to these beautiful gnocchi, as you can see here. There are several different dishes that we've created that showcase the Simple Solutions program, from meatloaf to a lasagna, chicken Alfredo. These are dishes which we believe give comfort and nourishment. Food gives people joy, and we are honored to be here today to share our passion for that. All right. So to finish the dish, these beautiful gnocchi. Maybe a little fancy garnish. And here you go. From my team and my family and everybody here, thank you so much for letting us participate. Have a beautiful and safe Thanksgiving, everybody.
And thank you so much for all of you sticking in a little bit longer. I think we were so, saddened that this was the last of our 4 presentations. We were just trying to cram as much content in there as we could for you, but really appreciate the chefs joining us today from Cuisine Solutions and Direct Food Service. Great knowledge and products. Really hope you enjoyed the webinar today. I always learn so much myself on these. And again, I know we can't hear you from home, but please give all of our presenters a big round of applause. I know you're all busy, but really know the value. We were getting some chats in from folks on how wonderful and valuable this information was to help provide creative things. I know a lot of folks were looking for ideas over the holidays, so hopefully you got some information. Also, a big thank you to the rest of the Dining Executive Council Board. I know it's a lot of time and work that even goes into helping give us direction on how to bring some of these webinars and events to life, and really hope I can see you all soon, and fingers crossed next year maybe we'll be in person. I'm not, going to get too hopeful about that because I don't want to be disappointed, but miss you all so much. But hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Please stay safe out there, and hope to talk to some of you soon.